Here we go, 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 folks. That's right. The trade deadline is over with, and we got to talk about the winners and losers of the trade deadline and gut check time. That's right, folks. Gut check time. We're talking about all 32 teams and what they need to do in order to keep on playing in January and February, okay? All of this and more on the 97th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, okay? I am your host with the most, all right? I am your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it, all right? Don't you worry about it because I'm your chief bag roll dominance. That's right, chief, head of the table, anything and everything related to the bag, rumors to the bag, and more. I am your GM who is also your hopium dealer, as well as the GM that's going to give you the truth bombs, hot takes, and more about all 32 teams. But you are listening to the greatest football podcast that you can listen to on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. I'm your GM who, by the way, do we got to start talking about the draft? We might have to talk about the draft in this episode. I don't know, but guess what? This is going to be a loaded episode. This is going to be a great episode. It's going to be an amazing episode. Some people may not like what I have to say, but it has to be said. So with all that said and done, let's just get into this thing, all right? So guess what? On 3, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, before we get into gut check time, which I know everybody is waiting for, let's talk about the trades, all right? I'm just going to briefly go over all the trades that have happened so far, and then we'll get into the winners and losers and, everything else, all right? So, Joe Flacco was traded to the Bengals, of course, as we all know. And so the Browns receive a 2026 fifth-round pick, while the Bengals, of course, receive Joe Flacco in a 2026 sixth-round pick. Here's the stats for Joe Flacco since being with the Bengals. 173 attempts from 112 completions, 1,254 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, 7.2 yards per attempt, a 64.7 completion percentage, and a 1-3 record. Now, can we hold the record against Joe Flacco? No. Because there's an offense and a defense. And last time I checked, Joe Flacco doesn't play defense. So with that being said, I feel like Joe Flacco has played well for the Bengals. Because leading up to this point, if you would have told me that the Bengals will make an in-division trade for Joe Flacco, I would have called you a liar. But at the same time, I understand why they did it, because once Joe Burrow got hurt, and once everybody realized that he most likely was not going to be playing for the rest of the year, they had to make a move. Because the quarterbacks that they had on the roster was not cutting it. They wasn't feeding Jamar Chase nor T. Higgins. But Joe Flacco, he is giving them every type of throw you could possibly think of. Now, unfortunately, we all know the defense isn't holding up their end of the bargain. But, that's another story for a different day. But the fact of the matter is, I feel like this is a good trade. Now on to Adafio Way and Alohi Gilman getting traded, right? So the Ravens receive Alohi Gilman, safety, and a 2026 fifth-round pick, while the Chargers receive Adafio Way and a 2027 seventh-round pick. Now with that being said, Adafio Way so far has 6 tackles and 4 sacks, while Alohi Gilman has 9 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, 1 pass deflection, and 1 forced fumble. So me personally, I feel like the Chargers have won this trade more than the Ravens. Let me explain why. From a production standpoint only, Adafio Way has been more productive than Gilman. Adafio Way, since being traded to the Chargers, has had a sack every single game. That's not something that you saw when he was playing for the Ravens, which further enhances everything that everybody has been saying for the past semi-years with the Ravens. Their pass rushers that they draft do much better when they're away from the Ravens than when they are with the Ravens. So to me, I feel like the Chargers won this. Because guess what? Come next offseason, they can move off of Bud Dupree, give Adafio Way a decent contract, and pair him with Khalil Mack, and you're good. Whereas with this safety for the Ravens, he has been productive, but I feel like personally safety wasn't a need. They needed more from their pass rushers and defensive line. And the fact that you trade away someone like Adafio is just blasphemy to me. But we're going to save that when we have to talk about the Ravens for the winners and losers of the trade deadline, all right? So let's keep this thing going. Tyson Campbell and Greg Newsome. So the Browns received Tyson Campbell in a 2026 7th round pick, while the Jags received Greg Newsome in a 2026 6th round pick. So Tyson Campbell so far has had 6 tackles, 1 pick, 4 pass deflections, and 1 forced fumble, while Greg Newsome has had 4 tackles and 2 pass deflections. So with that being said, I feel like Tyson Campbell going to the Browns was a better situation for him because if I'm not mistaken, the Jags primarily play zone, and that's not Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell is a man coverage corner, and we all know that the Browns run man coverage a lot. Not to mention, this move was primarily made because Greg Newsome is up for a big payday. And so we all know that the Browns won't be able to afford him, so let's just put him in a situation where they can afford him while getting a player in return who is already under contract with low numbers. It's a win-win situation for both sides. But let's keep this thing going. Roger McCreary. We all know that he goes to the Rams, and the Rams also get a 2026 conditional 6th round pick, while the Titans receive a 2026 conditional 5th round pick. A low-risk, high-reward move where you're addressing a need while at the same time you're not overcompensating for that player. This is the number one thing that I want you guys to always remember. Look at the teams that didn't have to give up a lot to get the player. Bookmark that because we're going to talk about it later on. But with Kyle Duggar, of course, the Steelers receive him in a 2026 7th round pick, while the Patriots receive a 2026 conditional 6th round pick. Again, a low risk, high reward move where you're addressing a need while at the same time you're not overcompensating for it. These are the type of trades that you want your GM to make. Not give up 2 first round picks for a player who really hasn't been productive since his first 2 years coming into the league. But we'll save that for later, okay? But let's talk about Keion White going to the 49ers. So the 49ers receive a 2026 7th round pick, while the Patriots receive a 2026 6th round pick. Again, this is a low risk, high reward move, while at the same time addressing a need because since Nick Bosa has gone down, their pass rushers haven't been able to create pressure while at the same time get sacks. And I know a lot of people probably saying, well, they should have went after Trey Hendrickson or a more well-known pass rusher. Well, let's be real here. The 49ers are going to need their first round pick next year. So it's only right that they try to go a little bit cheap while at the same time trying to at least put a Band-Aid over a bullet wound just for now. I feel like Keion White would fit better in Robert Saleh's system as a defensive end than what Mike Vrabel's system. That's just my personal opinion. I could be completely wrong, all right? Now let's talk about Michael Carter II and John Mechie, all right? So the Jets receive a 2027 6th round pick and John Mechie, while the Eagles receive Michael Carter II and a 2027 7th round pick. Low risk, high reward, while at the same time addressing your needs. We all know that the Eagles were looking for a corner. And so what did they do? They attacked corner hard. They went after Michael Carter II, who was a really good slot corner, as well as go after Jair Alexander. But this is the part of the season where Howie Roseman really gets in his bag. If there's any pressing needs on his team, regardless of what it is, he is going to find a way to address it. Now, with this trade, my question is, how are the Jets going to use John Mechie? What exactly in his skill set will help the Jets win games? Because at this point, what is John Mechie? Is he wide receiver 3? Is he wide receiver 4? Is he wide receiver 2? What exactly is he? But let's keep this thing going. So let's talk about the other trade that the Eagles made. They traded for Jair Alexander. So, of course, they receive him in a 2027 7th round pick, while the Ravens receive a 2026 6th round pick. Initially, when this trade went down, I did talk about it in the last episode, but now that we finally, allowed time to pass, it's a little bit of a head scratcher for the Ravens side, but I understand why the Eagles made this move because, again, corner was a problem for them. Outside of Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who else can you rely on? Kelly Ringo wasn't showing a whole lot. Adoree Jackson wasn't showing a whole lot. But by bringing in someone like Michael Carter and Jair Alexander, 2 proven corners, I think that'll bolster up the room a little bit more. But if you're the Ravens, you cut your nose off despite your face because you know why? You didn't play Jair Alexander. And I understand when you guys initially signed him, he was still recovering from an injury and whatnot. I get all of that. But we're in November. Like, I'm not saying he has to play an entire game. Put him on a snap count. Do something. Because I guarantee you, Jair Alexander approached the team and said, you know what? I feel like I'm not being used. I'm healthy. I'm always ready to play. I'm always a healthy scratch. I would like to be traded. And they probably asked him where you want to go. And he probably said, you know what? Take me to Philly. And there's that. Now, it sucks for the Ravens because if Marlon or Nate Wiggins goes down, who else can you rely on? But it's like, hey, you wasn't using him. So it is what it is at this point. But let's talk about Jalen Phillips, all right? So the Eagles receive him and the Dolphins receive a 2026 third-round pick. Now, with this move, he reunites with his old defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. Now, when he played under Vic Fangio in 2023, Jalen Phillips had 28 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 2 pass deflections, and 1 pick. Now, those aren't top 5 or top 10 pass rusher stats, but that's a promising stat line that says, hey, there's something there. Now, with him going to the Eagles, they're now saying, hey, you're going to be pass rusher 1 or 2. No, at best, you can be pass rusher 3 or 4, which is actually good because why? The Eagles love to have a rotation. So I think pairing you with Brandon Graham or pairing you with Nolan Smith or however you want to do things, I think that's great. And once again, by the time he leaves, if he decides to leave, guess what happens? The Eagles get a comp pick for it. So it's a win-win situation for the Eagles. But let's keep this thing going. Draymond heads to the Ravens, and so the Titans receive a 2026 conditional 5th-round pick. It's a little bit of a head-scratcher, I'll be honest. If I'm not mistaken, he can play both end as well as interior defensive line. I've never really seen him play, but from what I've heard, he can do a little bit of both. So how the Ravens are going to use him, I'll just leave it there because I have a whole lot more to say when we talk about the winners and losers of the trade deadline. But let's talk about Logan Wilson. So he heads to the Cowboys and the Bengals receive a 2026 7th-round pick. This is a good move for the Cowboys because they're bringing in a good coverage linebacker and pairing him with DeMarvion Overshown, which I think is a really good pair. So I think this is a low-risk type of move where you're not saying, hey, we need you to play like Sean Lee or you need to play like, a top 10 inside linebacker. No, all they need him to do is to just do his job and execute because for the longest time, what have the Cowboys been doing? Using hybrid safeties as linebackers thinking that it's going to work when in actuality, it really doesn't because a lot of times they be missing out on their tackles. No disrespect to y'all, but that's just what it is. But let's keep this thing going and let's talk about Jacoby Myers heading to the Jaguars. So they receive him while the Raiders receive a 2026 4th and 6th round pick. All right, so I understand why they made this move because Brian Thomas hasn't really been playing his best ball and Travis Hunter is out for a while. But why would you give up that type of compensation for somebody that's going to be a free agent next year? Just how it was pointless for Chris Ballard to trade away his 2026 first-round pick, his 2027 first-round pick, and A.D. Mitchell for Sauce Gardner. I understand people have different opinions about this. I have no problem with that. But the fact of the matter is, Sauce Gardner is not worth 2 first-round picks. You know who is worth 2 first-round picks? Derek Stingley or PS2. People that are consistent. People that have been proven since day one. Outside of the first 2 years of Sauce Gardner, what has he shown? Nothing. And I understand that Charvarius Ward is still hurt. I get all of that. But that doesn't mean that you say, you know what? F it. We're going to give up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. No. That's the dumbest thing that you could ever do because you know why? That automatically puts a time clock on this roster. And that also says that, guess what? We believe in this roster so much that we are willing to give up future assets that we could use to build up this team even more for a player right now, and we believe that within the next 3 to 5 years, we will be able to hold up a Lombardi. No. But here's a few junkie nuggets. So according to Next Gen Stats, Sauce Gardner hasn't allowed no more than 2 receptions to a single receiver in a game this season. Sauce Gardner has faced number 1 receivers on 45.5% of his coverage matchups. Now when targeted, he's forced tight windows at a 52% rate. But here's the kicker. The Jets now have 5 first-round picks within the next 2 years. I'm going to say that again. The Jets now have 5 first-round picks within the next 2 years. You have 3 first-round picks in 2027 alone. You have 2 second-round picks in 2026. So technically speaking, you could use those second-round picks to get back into the first round if you want to. We're going to save that for later. Let's talk about Rashid Shaheed before I get upset. So he goes to the Seahawks, and the Saints receive a 2026 4th-round pick and a 2026 5th-round pick. Now, this is a good move for the Seahawks because you're reuniting him with Clint Kubiak, which, if we're being real here, he had one of his best years under Clint Kubiak when he was with the Saints. He had 41 targets for 20 receptions, 349 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and 17.5 receiving yards per reception. Now, to some people, you're probably saying, those aren't really good stats. Rashid Shaheed is a wide receiver 2/3 on a lot of teams. He's a productive receiver, and if we're being real here, I think he can take this offense to another level. Because who's going to stop Cooper Kupp, JSN, Rashid Shaheed, A.J. Bonner, and Elijah Arroyo? And Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. Not a lot of people. But let's keep this thing going. Joe Tryon heads to the Bears. And so the Bears receive him in a 2026 7th-round pick, while the Browns receive a 2026 6th-round pick. A move that was very much needed because one of their pass rushers is out for the rest of the year because they tore his Achilles, so they needed to make a move quickly, while at the same time not giving up a lot of compensation, which I completely understand. Quinnen Williams, he heads to the Cowboys. And so the Jets receive a 2027 1st-round pick, which is going to be Dallas' highest 1st-round pick, a 2026 2nd-round pick, and Mozzie Smith. Now, here's some junkie nuggets about this. Since 2022, Quinnen Williams has beaten 57 double teams to generate pressure. He's 4th among defensive tackles in total pressures at 190 total pressures. Quinnen Williams has 13 run stuffs for loss or no gain, which is the 2nd most of this season. He's completed this on 8.9% of his run defense snaps, outpacing his career run stuff rate of 6.6% in 2020. We're going to save my opinion about this. Let's keep it going. Trevor Penning heads to the Chargers. The Saints receive a 2027 6th-round pick. Honestly, I feel like this was a bad move for the Chargers, but I understand why they did this because their offensive line is decimated with injuries, and they are desperate to at least get some bodies on that line. So I understand on one hand why they made this move, but I would have called a veteran. I would have did workouts. I would have done something at this point because it's already bad enough that you lost Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater for the rest of the year. But to bring in someone like Trevor Penning, who, I mean, if we're being real here, the Saints used him at left tackle. He didn't do anything. They used him at right tackle. Didn't do anything. They used him at guard. He didn't do anything. He's useless everywhere. And this is no disrespect to him, but bro, if the team is putting you in different positions and you still haven't shown anything, you're just bad. But let's talk about the final trade. And that is Ja'Sir Taylor going to the Jets while the Chargers receive a 2028 7th-round pick. My guess is this is just to fill in the voids that both Michael Carter and Sauce Gardner left on the team. Nothing more, nothing less. So let's talk about the winners and losers of the trade deadline. So for winners, you have Cowboys, Eagles, Jets, and Seahawks. In losers, you have Ravens, Titans, Chargers, Colts, and Jaguars. So let's start with the winners. So with the Cowboys, they definitely won this trade because when we look at it, since Micah Parsons has been traded, what did Jerry Jones say? I could either use these picks to acquire somebody or I can draft somebody. But he emphasized that he wanted to bring in somebody that is going to help with stopping the run. And who better person to get than Quinnen Williams? Not to mention, he's going to be a lot cheaper than what you would have had paid Micah Parsons. That's the part that I think people don't understand. When we look at the entire Micah Parsons situation, if the Cowboys would have paid Micah Parsons the money that he was looking for, they wouldn't be able to re-sign DeRon Bland. They wouldn't be able to re-sign their offensive lineman. They wouldn't be able to make the moves that they're making right now. So in some ways, it was a smart move for Jerry to make. He realizes that, listen, My team still needs a lot of time to be built. So I need to bolster up as many resources as I possibly can so that I can make this a little bit easier. Because Jerry was honest. He said, listen, I have more time behind me than ahead of me. So I need to maximize every single year that I have on this earth. And he's 100% right. But let's keep this thing going. Let's talk about the Eagles. So for them, they realized that one, their pass rusher room was not good enough. They realized that their cornerback room wasn't good enough. So they said, you know what? We're going to address those two positions as best as we can. They gave up a 3rd-round pick for Jalen Phillips. And they gave up day 3 picks for both Michael Carter and Jair Alexander. I think that's great. Because these are low-risk, high-reward moves where you are not thrusting them to be cornerback 1 or pass rusher 1. You're just putting them in a position where they can be successful, which is all you need. Because again, the pass rusher room for the Eagles has not been good this entire season. Nolan Smith has been banged up. Zadarius Smith just unexpectedly retired. And so they had to convince Brandon Graham to come back. So yes, they needed to make these moves. And they didn't have to give up a whole lot to get them. And then the most important part is, whatever Jalen Phillips do in the offseason, they're going to get a comp pick back. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a 3rd-round comp pick as well. So it's a free move. Who wouldn't want to make a free move? Classic Howie Roseman, folks. Classic Howie Roseman. Now with the Jets, yes, they are winners. And here's why. You realize that the current direction of this team is not successful. And you realize by having 2 players in both Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams, you can receive multiple draft picks that can help build this team up a little bit faster. So guess what? You got 5 first-round picks. You could possibly have a little bit more, honestly speaking. So that means you have multiple chances to find your quarterback, to find your receivers, to find your corners, your defensive tackles, and any other positions that you feel like needs to be upgraded. And the final winner is the Seahawks, because they realize that the missing piece is just another wide receiver. Outside of that, everything else on their roster is pretty good. Their defense is great. The offense has been putting up numbers. Sam Darnold looks like an MVP. Who's really complaining? This is the structure for success. This is the structure for long-term success if we want to take things another step. I guarantee you, folks, within the next 3 to 6 years, the Seahawks will be back in the Super Bowl. You heard it here first on the Football Junkies podcast. Then let's talk about these losers, because I got a lot to say about these losers. So let's start with the Ravens. You guys are losers because you realize that by trading away Odafe Oweh, everyone is thinking, oh, they're going to make a big move to bring in a really good pass rusher. And you didn't do that. You know what you did? You brought in Draymond Jones. And this is no disrespect to Draymond Jones. But I'm sorry, you had an opportunity, just like any of the other teams, to get someone like a Quentin Williams, and you didn't do it. I understand everybody has their qualms with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh isn't the person that you need to have qualms with. It needs to be EDC. Because year after year after year, you have a GM that continues to sit on his hands and say, you know what? I like being complacent. I like wasting people's time. I like not being aggressive. At some point, you're going to have to put your balls on the table and say, you know what? We're going to make this aggressive move because you know why? We are in our Super Bowl window and we need to win one. But even if you thought going after Quentin Williams was too expensive, you should have at least made one more move to shore up your offensive line. Daniel Falele is ass. And I mean hot ass. Garbage ass. Anytime that you see him on the field, you know most likely he's going to miss his assignments. He's not going to block well, and he's going to be a barbecue chicken alert for every single defensive lineman that he faces. So the fact that you didn't address those two needs, while at the same time bringing in another corner to replace Jair Alexander, just shows me that one, this team is not serious about winning, and that they should just get rid of all of their players. Because you cannot make the move that you made to acquire Roquan Smith and pay him the money that you paid him and then just say, you know what, after that, we're not going to do anything else. I don't care who the person is. I don't care what the asking price is. We're not going to do it. even though making one aggressive move could literally change your entire season. Let's be honest here. This is the best year for any other team outside the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are weak this year. The Broncos are going to keep them in check. And if we're being real here, if the Broncos win that division, the Chiefs don't want to face that. The Bills don't look that strong. So why would you not want to make at least one aggressive move? I'm not saying you got to throw the whole house away just to acquire one player, but you need to do something. Draymond Jones is not going to do anything. What you have right now is not good enough. Half of the people in your interior defensive line room are banged up. So you needed to bring in somebody fresh, somebody that you know that, guess what? When they step on that field, when they put their hand in that ground, they're going to make some noise. They're going to create some pressure. They are going to be able to change the entire game. But if you're not willing to meet that price, well, then by all means, you don't need to be a GM. Because all you're doing is wasting the prime years of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and everybody else that has been committed to this team through and through. So when that documentary comes out on why the Ravens never won a Super Bowl, go to EDC. Because EDC had the power, he had the resources, and he had the opportunities to solidify his roster over everybody else's. But he didn't want to pull the trigger. But let's keep on going. Let's talk about the Titans. So with them, yes, they are a loser. Because you know that you're going through a rebuild. You know that you're going to need an excess of resources in order to properly build this team up. And you're going to need more than just second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh round picks. You're going to need some first round picks as well. And the fact that you didn't get rid of Jeffrey Simmons, even though you had the opportunity to do it, lets me know that you're not serious. But this is the same thing that they did with Derrick Henry. The Ravens were willing to give whatever the Titans were asking for. And the Titans said, you know what? We're not going to do it. Because he's the reason why people come to the games. He's the reason why people want to buy jerseys, buy merch, attend whatever little get-togethers that the Titans hold. Are we serious about making money or are we serious about winning championships? Just let me know. The Chargers. I understand that your offensive line is depleted. I understand that you need somebody just to get by. But trading for Trevor Penning is not the answer. I would have at least tried to go after a veteran offensive lineman before I would have resorted to Trevor Penning. You're talking about somebody that has been tried at both tackles and guard and haven't been successful. So that just lets me know you're just downright atrocious. You should have at least held some workouts for some veteran offensive linemen. I understand they're probably not the best names. I understand that they have their own flaws as well, but hey, at least they can get you by because guess what? You're going to have to go up against the Steelers. A Steelers defense, by the way, that just finished beating one of the best teams in the league. So the fact that you don't have both Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater lets me know that most likely Justin Herbert is going to get cracked in this game. And I don't want that to happen, but I know it's going to happen. The Steelers are going to send the house, the car, and the fence at Justin Herbert. And there's nothing that you can do about it. Now the Colts. I understand you guys are having a great season. I understand things look very promising. But why in the blue hell would you give up 2 first-round picks for a player that has not been proven? It would be different if you gave up 2 first-round picks for Derek Stingley. I would not complain. Or you give up 2 first-round picks for PS2. I wouldn't complain. But Sauce Gardner has not shown anything within the last few years. And I understand that your cornerback room has been banged up. And I understand by bringing Sauce Gardner in, that can bring a little bit of energy back into the cornerback room. But I would not give up 2 first-round picks. This is just one good year. Anybody can have one good year. The Commanders won the NFC Championship last year, and now look at them. So why would you give up 2 first-round picks for somebody? You guys made 2 steps forward just to go 6 steps back. And by making this move, you have basically started the clock of being successful. Because if you don't make it to the AFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl within the next 5 years, that was a waste. Not to mention, you're going to have to pay Daniel Jones. You're going to have to pay Jonathan Taylor. You're going to have to pay one of your receivers. There's going to be a plethora of people that are going to be looking for big contracts this offseason. And by making a move for Sauce Gardner does not help. So that means one of those players is going to be a sacrifice. Are you willing to do that? Especially when you know that you still need all of your draft picks in order to properly build this team up. Daniel Jones looks good, but it's just one season. There's a difference between just having one magical season and just being downright consistent and great. Greatness is consistent. Good is just a moment. That actually sounds like a bar. I might have to write that down, but let's keep this thing going. The Jaguars. I understand that Trevor Lawrence needs some weapons. But giving up your 4th and 6th round pick for next year's draft for Jacoby Myers, who's only going to be playing for 8 games, is a waste. As I've said before in the early parts of this episode, I am not giving up a 4th and a 6th round pick for a wide receiver who is not currently under contract, let alone only play for 8 games. It'll be different if you made this move in the offseason. Okay, fine. That means you have the entire season to assess Jacoby Myers. But by making this move right now, you are cutting yourself short. And on top of that, you could have used those picks to address the need on your team because this team is still incomplete. If you're the Jaguars, you don't make this type of move if you don't believe that you're going to be able to re-sign him next year. If you guys have already had that conversation, okay, fine. Everything that I've said so far means nothing. But if you guys haven't had at least a preliminary talk about contracts, it's worthless. But here's another thing that I want to add in, and we'll talk about this just for a moment. Teams with multiple 2026 first-round picks include the Rams, the Browns, the Cowboys, and the Jets. 3 of those teams don't have a franchise quarterback. After listening to what Todd McShay had to say yesterday, it sounds like to me like the 26 draft class is not going to be the draft class for quarterbacks. It sounds like to me like 27 is going to be the better draft class. Because from what he said, Lenore Sellers may transfer to Miami. Fernando Mendoza is probably going to declare for the draft. The quarterback for Oklahoma, he may stay for another year because he had thumb surgery. Dante Moore is going to go back to school. So if that is true, that means a lot of the top prospects that everybody has been scouting is most likely going to be off the list. There's also a chance that Ty Simpson may also go back to school. So if you're the Steelers, if you're any of these teams that need a franchise quarterback, I don't think 26 is the year for you. I think 27 is the better year. Now, sure, you'll have Sam Lovett and you'll probably have a few other, prospects that you may be interested in. But I feel like all the prospects that everybody's going to want to go after will probably target the 27 draft and the 26 draft class. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. Only time will tell. All right. We still have a lot of time from now until the combine and the draft and, all those different things. Okay. So let's talk about gut check time. All right. All 32 teams we will be discussing. But before we do that, we got to pay some bills. Pardon the interruption, but this is your GM, your Bag Road Dominus, here to talk about RSS.com. All right. So if you guys already don't know, I am a RSS.com affiliate. And so I just want to tell you for just a quick moment about why you should choose RSS.com. So me personally, on my journey of podcasting, I was looking at different platforms just to find the right place. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked everywhere, but I checked out RSS.com and it was the best decision I ever made. From low prices to interactive analytics to as well as helping you with your distribution. RSS.com does it all. Not to mention, they just started a Slack channel where you can network and interact with other podcasters and even get some insightful tips on how you can increase your podcast even more. So head on over to RSS.com. I will be attaching my RSS affiliate link within the description. When you click on that link, I will be able to receive some compensation for it. And with that compensation, I will be able to give you guys a better product. A lot of that money will go towards upgrading the microphones, computers, new subscriptions for more analytical information that we can use for future podcasts, all of that and more. Thank you for your support, and thank you RSS.com for making me an affiliate. Now back to the good stuff. And we're back, folks. So let's talk about gut check time. That's right, all 32 teams, all 32 different opinions. So let's just get into it, all right? NFC North with the Lions. Fight to win the division. And the reason why I say that is because right now this is anybody's division. Nobody has a clear lead over the other. When we look at their divisional stats right now, the Vikings have the best stats within the division. They're 2-0. The Bears are 0-2. The Lions are 1-2, and the Packers are 1-0. But here's the thing. From a conference standpoint, the Packers are 3-1-1, the Lions are 2-2, the Bears are 3-2, and the Vikings are 2-2. With that being said, their remaining opponents are the Commanders, Eagles, Giants, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, Vikings, and Bears. So yes, they have some good matchups and then they have some very bad matchups, but I feel like they're probably going to either win the division or probably be like really close to winning it. Because right now their division is very competitive. Although the Vikings are 4-4, they can still put up a fight. The Bears are looking really good this year. The Packers are looking good this year, but they don't look like the team that everybody was expecting. So if you're the Lions, you want to beat the Eagles, you want to beat the Giants, you want to beat the Packers, of course, the Cowboys. You want to focus on your NFC wins more than your AFC wins because we're starting to get to the point where seeding is really going to matter. And those conference games are really going to hold a lot of weight. So I don't know what they got to do, but just get it done. Let's talk about the Vikings. Fight to save your season. And the reason why I say that is because your remaining opponents are the Ravens, Bears, Packers, Seahawks, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, Lions, and Packers. That's not an easy feat. Out of all those teams, the only two teams that I would say you should probably crush is the Commanders and Giants. Outside of that, you're facing all NFC opponents. So all of those games are must-win games. So if you're the Vikings, you're still in it, but at the same time, the margin of error, it's very small. And it's going to get smaller and smaller every single time that you lose a game. Specifically, you lose against NFC teams. Because as I just said, we're starting to get to the point where seeding is going to matter. On to the Bears. Get ready for the gauntlet. Your remaining opponents, Giants, Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers again, 49ers, and Lions. Now, the good news is you have a winning record. The bad news is your divisional record is trash. You haven't won a divisional record at all. And you need to win your divisional battles. You face the Packers twice, and then you end the season with the Lions. So, if we're being real here, you should be able to beat the Giants. After that matchup, things are going to get a little bit more treacherous. The Vikings are going to put up a fight. The Steelers are going to put up a fight. The Eagles, the Packers, the Browns, even though their season is over with, they can still bring a team down. You know the Packers are going to get their act together. You know the 49ers may try to put up a fight. And you know that there's a good chance that the division winner can be decided by the last game. So do you really want to take that risk? I don't think so. If I'm the Bears, I'm trying to win against the Vikings. I'm trying to win against the Packers twice, and I'm trying to win against the Lions. You want to make it so close to the point where they have to rely on other records to decide on who's going to win the division. I would rather do that than to say, you know what, we didn't win as many games as we needed to in order to solidify ourselves within the division. On to the Packers. Lock in. Your remaining opponents are the Eagles, Giants, Vikings, Lions, Bears, Broncos, Bears, Ravens, and Vikings. I'm going to be honest with you. This might be the hardest stretch I have seen so far. You got the Eagles, the Giants, you can most likely crush. The Vikings, the Lions, the Bears, the Broncos, the Bears again, the Ravens, and the Vikings. You got 3 games we're going up against divisional opponents. I don't know what you need to do. I don't know who you need to bring in. I don't know what speech needs to be given. But whatever it is, it needs to be done now. Because whether people realize it or not, with the Packers tying against the Cowboys, there's a chance that can easily affect them negatively or positively. So if I'm the Packers, I want to avoid that scenario. And the only way that you can do it is if you start off hot by beating the Giants, Vikings, Eagles, Packers, the Packers again, the 49ers, and the Lions. If you can beat out those teams, you're in a good spot. But if you're having trouble against the Vikings or the Eagles or the Packers twice, I don't know what to tell you. Out of all the teams that I just talked about, you can beat the Giants, you can beat the Browns. Everybody else, that's up to y'all. Now let's talk about the NFC South. All right, so with the Panthers, finish the season strong and keep the divisional battle close. Your remaining opponents are the Saints, Falcons, 49ers, Rams, Saints, Bucks, Seahawks, and Bucks again. So right now you're 5-4. Your divisional record is 1-0. Your conference record is 3-1, which is actually really good. But with that being said, you realize that you're fighting an uphill battle against the Buccaneers. But it is a battle that you can easily win if you get the job done. You've beaten the Packers, which is really good. The Saints, that's an easy W. The Falcons, that could be an easy W. That's 2 wins right there. All you have to worry about is the 49ers, Rams, the Bucks twice, and the Seahawks. If you can win those games, you're in a good spot. And when you win those games, you're going to put added pressure on the Buccaneers to maintain their lead. Because the Bucks realize that if they lose 1 or 2 games, guess what? You now take the lead in the division, which is what you want. On to the Falcons. Fight for your season. I understand that things haven't been the best for you lately because you're on a 3-game losing streak and your next opponent is the Colts on Sunday, but you got to fight. Because even though you may not make it to the playoffs, you can still make some noise. You can still be a team that drags one of your division rivals down, which you may want to do, honestly. Just saying, When you look at your remaining opponents, of course, you have the Colts, you have the Panthers, the Saints, the Jets, the Seahawks, the Bucks, the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Saints again. So you can beat the Saints twice. You can beat the Jets. Everybody else, it's up in the air, which is what you want. Because when we look at it, right, your division record is not good. Your conference record could be a little bit better. But that doesn't mean that you just sit down and say, you know what, the season's over. There's no point in us fighting. There's no point in us putting in effort. None of that. You have to keep fighting. That momentum could save somebody's job. Not saying that, people are going to get fired or anything, but you just want to show a little bit of grit. The Saints have quit, okay? Their good is gone. Their goose is cooked. Yours isn't. You could still have a winning record, even though you don't make it in the playoffs, which I think at this point, if you're the Falcons, I think that's what you probably want to shoot for. If you can have a winning record, but you don't make it in the playoffs, I think that's a successful season. I think that's a season that shows, hey, what we have right now is working. We just have to continue to build off of it. Then just say, you know what? There's no point in us fighting. We're just going to tank so we can get a high draft pick so we can just draft somebody. On to the Bucks. Extend the divisional lead. Your remaining opponents: Patriots, Bills, Rams, Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, and Panthers again. You know you're going to beat the Dolphins. You know you're going to beat the Saints. You know you're going to beat the Cardinals. The Patriots and the Bills and Rams are going to give you some trouble. The Falcons may try to give you some trouble as well. And the Panthers, hey, they just finished beating the Packers, so it's topsy-turvy with them, all right? Now, with your divisional record, you're 2-0, but your conference record is 4-2, which is really good. You have to extend your divisional lead because the Panthers are right behind you. And you know right now they have the momentum on their side. So if you're the Buccaneers, I would rather seal up the division by Christmas, or better yet, Thanksgiving, than to give the Panthers a chance to fight this thing all the way to the end. But on to the Saints. So use the rest of the season to assess the team. Your remaining opponents are the Panthers, Falcons, Dolphins, Bucks, Panthers again, Jets, Titans, and Falcons. So that's manageable. But if we're being real here, you're tanking so you can get a high draft pick, all right? If we really want to take things another step further, you're using this to assess Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, Chris Olave, and everybody else that you have on this team. Because I would rather for you to use the rest of the season to see what you have and what you don't have than to just say, you know what, we're going to put our hardest effort in. We're going to try to win as many games as we possibly can, even though we know damn well you guys aren't. Your season is over with. You're not going to do anything, so just count your losses, all right? Your goose is cooked, and it has been cooked since week 6, if we're being real here. Now on to the NFC East. The Eagles finished the season strong. So right now you're 6-2. Your divisional record is 2-1. Your conference record is 5-1, which is great. Your remaining opponents are the Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Bears, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, and Commanders again. Now with that being said, we all know that you can beat the Commanders. We know that you can beat the Chargers. We know that you can beat the Raiders. All you really have to worry about is the Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Bears, and the Bills. The Cowboys may be a team you may have to keep an eye on, especially with them acquiring Quentin Williams. Just saying. But if you want to get a high seed, you're going to have to finish strong. And that doesn't mean you just let up on the last 2 games. No. You have to be guns blazing from this point on. Now on to the Cowboys. Prepare for the gauntlet. Your remaining opponents are the Raiders, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, and Giants. Now, with that being said, your divisional record is 2-1, and your conference record is 2-4-1. Which, if we're being real here, that tie may have a negative or positive effect on you when it comes to playoff seeding. Now, we all know that you can beat the Raiders. It's just what you do against the Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, and Vikings that's going to matter the most. And we also realize that the offense can't continue to be the workhorse for the team. At some point, the defense is going to have to step up. Now, am I saying that you have to, be this dominant team for the rest of the season? No. But if you can just contribute, be consistent, make great plays, I think this team can make some noise. On to the Commanders. Assess your strengths and weaknesses and prepare for the offseason. Your remaining opponents: the Lions, Dolphins, Broncos, Vikings, Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, and Eagles again. With Jaden Daniels recovering from a dislocated elbow, I would rather the Commanders use the rest of the season to assess their strengths and weaknesses on this team than to just say, you know what, we're going to try to put our best foot forward. Because let's be honest here, there's a lot of holes in this team, and they're going to have to be addressed in the next offseason. For starters, the defense has to get younger. But anytime your defense is composed of older players, you're not going to see a whole lot of production out of them. And if you do, it's going to be in spurts. Paying $10 million to Von Miller isn't going to solve the pass rushing issue. Trading for Marshawn Lattimore isn't going to solve the cornerback issue. You most likely are going to have to draft those positions, or you're going to have to pay a premium to bring in a really good player to address one of those positions. Now, luckily, next year's draft class is supposed to be a defensive draft class. And last time I checked, there's supposed to be a lot of good edge rushers that are coming out next year. So with that being said, you need to assess your tight end room, your receiving room, your offensive line, your running back room. You need to assess every single position on this team and say, you know what? Can we upgrade this position? Can we make a move to possibly bring in somebody that can be more productive? You need to have these honest conversations now so that when the draft comes around and free agency starts, guess what? You have all your ducks in a row and you're ready to go. Now on to the Giants. Try to finish the season strong and prepare for the offseason. Your remaining opponents: Bears, Packers, Lions, Patriots, Commanders, Vikings, Raiders, and Cowboys. Now, realistically speaking, you're not going to win a lot of games. But if you can win a couple of these games, I think that can be promising. And I think the way that you win those games can also be bonus points as well. Let's be honest here. This team is still incomplete. The wide receiver room needs more talent. The running back room needs more talent. Offensive line needs to get stronger. The defense could get a little bit stronger in a few different areas. So there's room for growth. So you need to use the rest of these games to assess, hey, how do we match up against these teams? And be honest. Some feelings may get hurt, but guess what? You need to be honest at this point, because there was a point in time during this season that we were talking about Joe Shane and Brian Daboll getting fired by Thanksgiving. But since Jackson Dart has come in, he's been a breath of fresh air. So if you're ownership, do you want to break that up? No. I think you're going to have to keep Joe Shane and Brian Daboll for another year. Now, if next year comes around and you don't see anything that you saw this year, okay, fine, you can blow it up, go in a different direction, whatever. But you have to keep rolling with this. Now on to the NFC West, all right? So with the 49ers, try to keep up with the Rams and Seahawks. So your remaining opponents: Rams, Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans, Colts, Bears, and Seahawks. Now you have a chance to make some noise both in the division and in the conference. But all you have to do is just continue to stack wins. Now, am I saying you have a chance to win the division? Realistically, yes. But the path to acquire that is very difficult. We all know that you can beat the Titans and the Browns and the Cardinals. But how are you going to match up against the Rams, the Colts, the Bears, and the Seahawks? But on to the Seahawks. Extend the divisional lead. The remaining opponents are the Cardinals, Rams, Titans, Vikings, Falcons, Colts, Rams, Panthers, and 49ers. Which really isn't that bad. You can beat the Cardinals. You can beat the Titans. You can beat the Falcons. It's what you do against everybody else that matters. I think right now you're in a good spot within the division, but I wouldn't get comfortable because why? The Rams and the 49ers are right behind you. And right now, if you're the Seahawks, you want that home field advantage. So the only way that you can get it is if you win the division and you get a high seed within the playoffs. Now on to the Cardinals. Assess your strengths and weaknesses and prepare for the offseason. Your remaining opponents: the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Jags, the Bucks, the Rams, the Texans, Falcons, Bengals, and Rams again. So with that being said, you're in a spot right now, you just have to count your losses. Kyler Murray most likely isn't going to play for the rest of the year. And most likely he's going to get moved this offseason, which that's going to be a separate conversation when we get to gut check time for the offseason. But with that being said, this team needs to assess what they have and don't have, especially with next year's draft being a defensive draft. I think you really need to see, okay, are you comfortable with your pass rushers? Are you comfortable with your corners? And maybe even some of your wide receivers as well. Because it looks like to me that the Cardinals are probably going to go through another rebuild. And if you're going through another rebuild, you need to see who is your building blocks for the future. Is it Trey McBride? Is it Paris Johnson? Is it Will Hernandez? Because by doing so, you are creating a hierarchy of what positions you value high and low. Which is very important because, again, like I said before, this is supposed to be a defensive draft class next year. So that means that, hey, you might be able to get your pass. You might be able to rebuild your cornerback room and safeties and whatnot. You may not be able to do anything for the offense. But with that being said, let's keep this thing going. Let's talk about the Rams. Finish the season with momentum and win your divisional battles. So right now, your remaining opponents are the 49ers, Seahawks, Bucks, Panthers, Cardinals, Lions, Seahawks, Falcons, and Cardinals. So this isn't that bad, but I think it's manageable, all right? You know the 49ers and Seahawks are going to be tough matchups. You know the Buccaneers are going to give you some problems. You know the Panthers aren't a team that you can't sleep on. You know the Cardinals are just done at this point, if we're being real here. You know the Lions and Seahawks and maybe even the Falcons may try to put up a fight with you. So it's not just rainbows and unicorns at this point. So don't take your foot off the gas. Increase the pressure on the Seahawks and make sure you keep winning your divisional and conference battles. Because so far you haven't won a divisional game. And right now your conference record is 1-2. So you have time to fix it, but the question is, are you going to fix it? Because if you don't, that can negatively affect you when it comes to playoff seeding. Now let's go to the AFC, all right? Let's start with the AFC North. So the Steelers extend the divisional lead while becoming more consistent. Your remaining opponents: the Chargers, the Bengals, the Bears, the Bills, the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Browns, and the Ravens again. So right now you're 5-3. Your divisional record is 1-1. Your conference record is 4-1, which is really good. But the thing is, you haven't really been consistent in the last few weeks. So right now, this is the perfect opportunity for you to start develop that consistency on both sides of the ball. Because after the Chargers, the Bengals are coming to Pittsburgh. You know you're going to have to face the Bills. You know you're going to have to face the Bears. You know the Ravens aren't no slouch. You know the Dolphins are just, done at this point. No disrespect to y'all. You know the Lions are going to put up a fight. You know the Browns are going to try to bring you down. And you know that you're going to end the season with the Ravens. And most likely that matchup is going to dictate who wins the division. Because right now, the Ravens, the rest of their schedule is pretty good. Yours, on the other hand, is about to be very difficult. But since we're talking about the Ravens, let's talk about their storyline. So keep the divisional battle close while finish the season strong. So the remaining opponents are the Vikings, Browns, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals again, Patriots, Packers, and then Steelers. So right now they're 3-5. Their divisional record is 1-0, and their conference record is 2-3. Now they can turn things around, but it's going to be difficult. The Vikings are going to put up a fight. The Bengals, Steelers, Patriots, Packers, they're going to put up a fight. So you got to bring your A game. You can't just have those crappy games like how you had in the first half of the season. Now everything really matters. And you know that the Browns are going to try to bring you down. So don't fall for the trap games. Always be on your P's and Q's and try to win as best as you can. Because right now, if I'm not mistaken, you and the Bengals have the best divisional records. So right now, most likely, you're probably going to lose to the Steelers. And I'm not saying this as a fan. You know the Steelers are going to get their lick back. And you're playing in Pittsburgh. The Patriots aren't no slouch. The Ravens ain't no slouch. The Bills ain't no slouch. And then you have to face the Ravens again. The Dolphins, you can do whatever you want with them. Cardinals, that's another dub. Browns, that could be a trap game, depending on how things go between the Ravens and the Steelers. let's be honest here. Just because you trade for Joe Flacco doesn't mean that you guys now have a chance to make it to the playoffs. Because your defense is still trash. Granted, you have the best divisional record, but you're in a really bad spot right now. Because if you lose 2 or 3 more games, that's it. Your season is finito. And it doesn't help that they didn't make any moves to bolster up the defense, which, if we're being real here, they probably should have. And I probably should have listed them as a loser as well. But forget about that. Let's talk about the Browns, okay? So assess your roster and prepare for the offseason. Your remaining opponents, the Jets, the Ravens, Raiders, 49ers, Titans, Bears, Bills, Steelers, and Bengals again. Let's be real here. As I've said before, it was either in Wacko Flacco or Paper Champs. You need to use this time to assess what you have between Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, then just continue to roll with Dylan Gabriel. But if he is healthy, let Shedeur Sanders play. Now, I understand there's going to be a lot of media coverage and, a whole bunch of questions about Shedeur and everything, but you need to assess what you have between these two. Because for all intents and purposes, you could say, you know what, we're comfortable between these two, and we'll just draft a wide receiver or offensive lineman or another position instead of going after a quarterback. Because remember, the Browns have 2 first-round picks. So if they wanted to, they could address quarterback, and then they could address wide receiver if they wanted to take that route. Because, listen, their record is 2-6. Divisional record is 0-3. Conference record is 1-4. Facing the Jets, that's essentially a rock fight. Facing the Raiders, that's a rock fight. Titans, that's a rock fight. Everything else outside of that is basically a slaughter. I'm just being honest. I could be wrong, but that's where the Browns are. Because outside of Myles Garrett, what else is the bright spot on this team? Nothing. Your offensive line needs to be rebuilt. Your wide receiver room is just depleted of talent. I understand Jerry Jeudy is there, but he really hasn't shown anything. You have David Njoku, okay, that's promising. You have Quinshon Junkies, okay, that's promising. But outside of them, what else do you have? Because the defense is doing their thing. It's the offense that continues to go through these hiccups every single year. And then it doesn't help that you're not going to have a lot of cap space next year. So you're going to have to rely on your draft picks, and you're going to need those draft picks in order to hit quickly. Hey, Myles Garrett, you never should have signed the contract. You should have just stuck with your guns and just asked for a trade. Just saying. But not going to say anything about it. Let's go to the AFC South. All right, so with the Titans, let the ship sink and assess your interim head coach. Right now, your remaining opponents are the Texans, Seahawks, Jags, Browns, 49ers, Chiefs, Saints, and Jags again. Now, we all know their divisional record is atrocious at 0-3, and their conference record is 0-7. Just let the season just end. And you need to see what you have in your interim head coach. Can he at least win 2 or 3 games? Can he at least motivate this team to play a little bit harder? If he can do those certain things, then hey, maybe you have your next head coach. Or maybe you're just going to say, hey, we like what you did, but we're going to go in a different direction. Because let's be honest here, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. So there's no need for you to really assess anything because there's barely anything on this team. Most likely they're going to release L'Jarius Sneed. Most likely they're going to release Calvin Ridley. And most likely they're going to release a few other veteran players on this team. And if I'm Jeffrey Simmons, I'm going to make some noise this offseason. Because I'm not going to be the person that's going to be left standing here in this crap. I want to win a championship. And there were teams out here that was looking to at least trade for me. But I'm not going to get on my soapbox. I'm going to leave that alone. Now on to the Colts. Lock up the division. Your remaining opponents. The Falcons, Chiefs, Texans, Jags, Seahawks, 49ers, Jags again, and then the Texans. Overall, you're in a really good spot. You're undefeated in the division. And you've only lost to the Steelers so far within the conference. So right now, if you're the Colts, try to lock up this division by Thanksgiving. Because I think they have the opportunity to do it. You can beat the Falcons. You possibly can beat the Chiefs. You can beat the Texans because they're having a down year. You can beat the Jags, the Seahawks, the 49ers. Everybody that I have listed so far, you can beat them. But Daniel Jones has to get back on straight street. You cannot have the same performance that you did against the Steelers. And granted, I understand the Steelers were doing a plethora of different things. But you cannot afford doing the same things that you used to do in New York. On to the Jags. Stack wins and try to fight for the division. Your remaining opponents: Texans, Chargers, Cardinals, Titans, Colts, Jets, Broncos, Colts again, and then the Titans again. So right now, this division is pretty much locked up with the Colts and the Jaguars right now, I would say. I don't think the Texans are going to do anything this year. I know for damn sure the Titans aren't going to do anything at all. So with that being said, if you're the Jaguars, just continue to stack wins and get healthy. Because right now, I want to believe that they have a chance to win the division, but I just don't believe it right now. I think the Colts are way too hot right now, and they have all the momentum within the division. Now, can crazier things happen? Yes. Especially with the Colts losing DeForest Buckner for a minimum of 4 games. This could be your opportunity. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Now on to the Texans. Prepare for the 3-game gauntlet. Your remaining opponents: the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bills, Colts, Chiefs, Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers, and Colts again. Let's be honest here. I don't think nobody expected the Texans to play this bad. And right now, if you're the Texans, you just have to survive. You can beat the Jags. You can just steamroll the Titans at this point. The Bills are probably going to give you a problem. The Colts are probably going to give you a problem. So right now, you just want to just put up a fight. Do something. You got to have something positive to say about the Texans because man, oh man, have they underperformed. And it's honestly sad because when you look at the talent on this team, I think everybody was expecting them to at least compete against the Colts. I'm not saying they got to be just steamrolling everybody in the division, but the fact that they're just underperforming week after week after week is a little bit troublesome because pretty soon you're going to have to pay CJ Stroud. And let's not forget, they also have to pay Will Anderson as well. Dang, I hate to be a Texans fan. But on to the AFC East. For the Patriots, lock of the division. Your remaining opponents: the Bucks, the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants, the Bills, the Ravens, the Jets, and the Dolphins. So this is actually pretty good. You can beat the Jets, we already know that. You can beat the Dolphins, we already know that. You've been keeping the Bills in check. The Ravens might give you a problem, but I think overall you're in a really good spot. You're undefeated in the division and you're 4-2 in the conference. So as long as you maintain this momentum, everything is going to be good. Not to mention, playoff football comes back to Foxborough. Do you know what that means? That aura, that feeling of an opponent being in Foxborough for the playoffs? That is a feeling that Patriot fans haven't felt in a very long time. And best believe if they make it in the playoffs, or better yet, win the division and get home field advantage, oh, they're going to have to roll out the red carpet. You're going to have to bring back Tom Brady. You're going to have to bring back Gronk, Julian Edelman, all those guys. But let's keep this thing going. So on to the Jets. Put up an effort while assessing the roster. Your remaining opponents: the Browns, Patriots, Ravens, Falcons, Dolphins, Jags, Saints, Patriots, and Bills. So yes, your season is essentially over. I mean, you trade away Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams, but you can still win some games. I think going up against the Browns, that's a very winnable game. I think going up against the Falcons and the Dolphins and the Saints, those are winnable games. Because right now, you need to see what you have on this team and what those 5 first-round picks are going to go to. Is it going to go to corner, defensive tackle, wide receiver, quarterback, offensive line, running back? Because right now, this whole roster needs to be scrapped. And I hate to say it, but that's just where it is. Sometimes you got to scrap it just to rebuild it all over again. And granted, they have the resources to do it. You have 5 first-round picks. And on top of that, if we're being real here, just being honest here, you could use those second-round picks to get back into the first round if you want to take that route. So you're in a good spot. It's just you're having to trade away, current assets for future assets. It's not bad. Now on to the Bills. Fight to win the division. Your remaining opponents: the Dolphins, the Bucks, Texans, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Eagles, and Jets. So right now your divisional record is 2-1 and your conference record is 4-1. I'll be honest here. You guys have a very tough battle against the Patriots right now. Because right now, as I've said before a couple minutes ago with the Patriots, they go up against the Buccaneers, the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants, the Bills, the Ravens, the Jets, and the Dolphins. Those are all winnable games. Whereas with you Bills fans, you have to go up against the Dolphins, which that's automatic W. The Buccaneers, the Texans, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Patriots, the Browns, the Eagles, and the Jets. Those are very tough matchups. And you're going up against teams that at this point in the season, they're going to put up a fight. So I don't know what you have to do, but do it. Because right now, that defense played well against the Chiefs, but that's just one game. I want to see consistency. I want to see how are you going to hold up against the Buccaneers, the Eagles, the Steelers, the Patriots. Because there might be a chance you may have to face them again in the playoffs. On to the Dolphins. Use the rest of the season to assess the roster while preparing for the draft. Your remaining opponents: the Bills, Commanders, Saints, Jets, Steelers, Bengals, Bucks, and Patriots. Right now, you need to use the remaining games to assess Mike McDaniel. You need to see, can he keep this team motivated despite them having a losing season, or do you need to scrap everything and just go in a different direction? Granted, I would have expected the Dolphins to be a little bit more aggressive during the trade deadline and trade away some of their current players for future assets, but clearly that's not the case. So if you're the Dolphins, yes, you're 2-7. I mean, the Jets are 1-7, but you still want to show something. I would rather a team like the Dolphins fight through the Bills, Commanders, Saints, Jets, Steelers, Bengals, Bucks, and Patriots. I would rather put up a fight against all of those teams and still lose than to just get blown out. And when you look at the tape, nobody is just doing the routine things. Nobody is showing effort. When your players look defeated on the sideline, oh, you basically lost the locker room. You lost everybody. But let's talk about the AFC West, all right? So with the Broncos, fight off the division. So right now they're 1-1 in the division because they just won against the Raiders. They're 4-2 in the conference, which is really good. And so right now, their remaining opponents are the Chiefs, Commanders, Raiders again, Packers, Jags, Chiefs, and Chargers. I think right now they can still beat the Chiefs. I think right now they most likely will win the division. But the question is, how wide of a divisional lead will they have? Because we all know this is the part of the season where the Chiefs start cooking. And if you want to tamp that down, you're going to have to start winning your division. Now, granted, you just finished beating the Raiders on Thursday night. You got to face them again. That's another W. You can beat the Chiefs. You can beat the Commanders. The Packers may be a little bit of a problem. The Jags, I mean, W, I would say. Sorry, Jags fans. It's nothing against you. The Chiefs, again, that's going to be a tougher matchup. Because that's going to be at the point of the season where divisions are going to start being locked and, we're going to start seeing playoff pictures and all those different things. Now, the Chargers, at this point, I'll be honest, I don't think they're really going to go anywhere because their offensive line is atrocious and Justin Herbert just can't continue to play hero ball week after week after week behind just a ghost of an offensive line. I'm just being honest here. I could be wrong. But when we talk about the Raiders, focus on the 26th draft. Just focus on the draft at this point, okay? Count your losses. Max Crosby, just find a hobby or something because you guys aren't going anywhere. Your remaining opponents: the Broncos, the Cowboys, the Browns, the Chargers, the Broncos again, the Eagles, the Texans, the Giants, and the Chiefs. Those are some difficult matchups. And most likely you are not going to win any of those matchups. So at this point, you need to start developing your big board and just figuring out, okay, who are we going after in next year's draft? Are we getting a quarterback? Are we getting a wide receiver? Are we getting a defensive end? What are we doing at this point? Because right now, this roster is incomplete. And if we're being real here, the Raiders should have traded off Max Crosby. Because you could have used that extra first-round pick to address another position of need on this team. The offensive line is atrocious. Ashton Jeanty looks defeated. Your wide receiver room, it's promising, but it's going to take time to grow. Brock Bowers has been in and out of the lineup because he's been battling injuries. Your defense, what is it? Outside of Max Crosby, what is it? I'll leave that there. You guys let me know in the comments. On to the Chargers. Stay in the race. Right now, your divisional record is 3-0, which is great. And your conference record is 5-1, which is great. The fact that Justin Herbert has been able to play the way that he's been playing without an offensive line is amazing. Which, I mean, if we're being honest here, you may have to put him in for MVP. Just saying, just putting it out there. Don't hurt me, okay? But with that being said, their remaining opponents are the Steelers, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Eagles, the Chiefs, Cowboys, Texans, and Broncos. So, not the best schedule, but I think they can do something. Just run the ball, okay? Just run the ball. Do not do anything else. Don't try to be cool about it. Just run the ball, pass the ball a little bit, all right? That's it. Because, man, you're facing the Steelers on Sunday night without an offensive line. Then you have the Jaguars, which you can beat. The Raiders, automatic W. The Eagles, that's going to be a fight in itself. The Chiefs are going to be a fight. The Cowboys, the Texans, and Broncos. All of those are going to be fights. So you're in a good spot within your division because right now you're undefeated. So maybe if you lose maybe a game or two, you'll still be in a good spot. Because I don't think the Chiefs are going to be number 2 in the division. And we all know the Raiders aren't going anywhere. So just try to survive. Please. Please. That's all I'm asking. Because I really want to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs. But that's another story for another day. All right? On to the Chiefs. Keep your playoff chances alive. Your remaining opponents. The Broncos, Colts, Cowboys, Texans, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, and Raiders. Now, out of all of those names that I just listed, the only 2 teams that I would say is an automatic W is the Titans and the Raiders. Outside of that, it is a fight. The Broncos is going to be a fight. The Colts are going to be a fight. The Cowboys just got Quentin Williams. That might be a fight low-key. The Texans, they not going down either. Now, granted, you're 1-1 within your division, and you're 2-3 in the conference. So most likely, you're going to be on the road for the playoffs. Which, if we're being real here, I know the Chiefs can do it, but the opponents that they're going to have to face on the road might be a problem for them. Because there's a good chance the Patriots are going to win their division, so that means the Bills are probably going to be on the road. There's a good chance that either the Steelers or the Ravens are going to win their division, which means whoever doesn't is going to be on the road. So if you're the Chiefs, you got to go into overdrive. You got to beat the Broncos and the Colts and the Texans and the Chargers. You have to scratch and claw to try to at least get a chance to win the division. Or at least get a high enough seed to where you can face a weaker opponent in the playoffs. Because right now, the Broncos have the high ground. Star Wars reference, if you know, you know. And if we're being real here, the way everything looks for the rest of the AFC divisions, I don't think you want to face the Bills. I don't think you want to face the Patriots. I don't think you want to face the Ravens. So if you're the Chiefs, you're going to have to scratch and claw to at least try to get a chance. And even with that chance, you're not even really guaranteed to have a high enough seed within the playoffs because there's been a lot of teams within the AFC that have actually been doing well this year. So prepare your hearts and minds for the Chiefs to not make it to the Super Bowl this year. Oh, what a glory day. What a glory day. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you're listening, please make sure you guys download the episodes. Leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, okay? We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts, all right? Now, if you go on Google, type in rss.com Football Junkies Podcast, it'll take you to our podcast page via rss.com where you'll have a plethora of different places that you can go to listen to our podcast, all right? Now, for my YouTube people, like, share, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on any of the things that I have covered in this episode. Am I right about the Chiefs? Am I wrong about the Chargers? Let me know, all right? Now, when you go on our YouTube, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod, there is a link tree in our bio. When you click on that link tree, it'll take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content, all right? I just posted the clip yesterday, and most likely I will be posting clips throughout the weekend, all right? Now for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, all right? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced, all right? It is together, not spaced. Now for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod. Football Junkies Pod. I just posted a clip yesterday. Let me know your thoughts about it. Am I right or am I wrong? There will be more clips coming out soon, all right? Now for my X people / Twitter, GM Kale, all right? GM Kale, Kaile, as well as for Blue Sky, GM Kale, GMKAILE. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. We may be talking about more draft prospects within the coming weeks. I don't know. We'll just see how things go with different storylines and not, but I'll always let you guys know, all right? So as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I know I said it before, but I'll say it again because I really do love you guys, because without you guys, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So, Kale signing out. Peace and love. Later, guys.